All right, we're about to go on. We're going live now. All right, we're about to go on. We're going. I thought I turned the volume down. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to I am your host, Tyrone Bridges. Let's get it. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, everybody. I am your host, Tyrone Bridges, and we have a returning guest on our show, a very, very special guest on our show. A young lady who is running for our Washtenaw County trial court, circuit court judge, Arianne Slay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tyrone. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate you.
All righty. Without further ado, I don't want to juice everybody up with talking. I want to let everybody hear from you, talk to the public and tell them what you're running for and all that other good juicy stuff, even though I said it first.
Okay, Tyrone, I'm a trial attorney. How long do you want me to talk? I could take the whole show.
Well, do it. We got time. Let's go.
Okay. Hello, everybody out there in Facebook land. My name is Arianne Slay. I am running to be your next trial court judge in the 22nd Circuit Court. This is a November election. I'm here today to share with you my platform, and I thank Tyrone for having me back on the show. If you are out there and you have questions, please let us know, because I am an open book and I am happy to share my contact information. If your question does not get addressed today, I am here. And I have like 130 some days to the election, so you have a lot of time to get to know me. Why am I running? That's a question most people really start off by asking. And there's a bunch of reasons, but I think the most important one, and the one that is most important for you to know about me, is that justice and justice reform is personal for me. It's not a tagline. It's not something you say with a hashtag on it. It is real life. And I have dedicated the last 20 years of my life as a public servant to making sure that justice is actualized for everyone. And I'm coming from a place of understanding that that has not always been the case for most, and definitely not for folks that look like Tyrone or I. There were days in my earlier part of my career, and actually not so recent past, that I would be in the courtroom over in the city of Ann Arbor. And when the police chief and the now sitting Judge Perry were not on the bench, I was the only person of color in 6 floors of people in a municipal building. The only, until the criminal defendants came in. And then the only people that looked like me were in cuffs. And that is a hard reality to see. It is a hard reality to work in, knowing that this system has let us down time and time again. But I'm not just sitting here on the sidelines watching it go by. And that is the one thing that I will tell you, that I have this heart of a justice reformer, but I've turned it into action. Over the last 5 years, I've been a deputy city attorney for City of Ann Arbor. And I have brought programs that uplift us, that protect us, and that address the root causes of justice involvement. We do not just lock people up in the city. We actually try to have a plan and to help people not have a life that is worse off because they have become justice involved, whether it be as a victim or as a charged defendant. Great. So I can tell you, I started a diversion program where 80% of the cases that come into the city attorney's office, and in some months even higher than that, do not end in a criminal conviction. We provide services, we provide restorative justice, we provide healing, and then we send you along your way, and we hope we don't see you again in this capacity. And so far it is working. We don't have the return folks that we used to have on every docket. So that's been really great. And it's a fully funded program. So we're helping with substance abuse, mental health crises, housing, you name it, we're in there, we're in it with you. The second thing I've done, which is just recently actualized, is I got city council to fund a full deflection program. And that means, and wait for it, everybody, because this is about to get live. You don't have to get in trouble before we help you. That means we can take a referral from anyone in our community that says this person has got something going on that could lead to justice involvement. They're actively using drugs. They are in crisis for mental health. They are not housed. They are underemployed. These are things that in a combination and in a whirlwind of things could lead to getting somebody caught up. Can you help them now before this happens? Or alternatively, it's already happened. We're trying to mitigate this. They still need help. And do we have to wait till they're convicted to get them help? If you're looking for government paid for help, yeah, you do. That's the way the system is designed. There's too much money in the criminal justice system to not have more people feeding into it. But the city of Ann Arbor took a step back and they said, we want to help people before they end up in incarcerated positions or that they are having charges that they can't get back. So again, fully funded, over $500,000 per year, housing, substance abuse, mental health crisis, identification services, GED services, you name it, there's a pot of money for it. And I'm incredibly proud of this work. And it was something that I felt like I needed to do so that I'd be prepared to go to this next avenue of service, which is to serve as a judge.
Look here.
So those are the things. I'm not a all talk person. I'm actually live. I'm in the community. I'm doing these things. I have been doing them for a long time. I also spent 6 years as the domestic violence prosecutor for the county. But I worked in the jail doing substance abuse screenings, a little tether, a whole bunch of stuff over the course of my years. So I have a lot of experience and perspective to bring to the bench. But speaking of perspective, if I am blessed to serve as a judge for y'all, I will be the only person of color on the entire circuit bench. And I think that's important because I do bring perspective, and I won't just bring it to my colleagues, but I'll bring it to the community as well. I think one of the most important things that we need to do as elected officials is to bring trust to the government. Most people, rightfully so, don't have any. And I believe that I can earn your trust through transparency, one decision after another, day after day. And when you go into that courtroom, you don't have to be like me, where the only person in the courtroom is in custody. Especially for our Black folks, especially for our women coming in, it is important to see representation in all aspects of life. And I think when you are facing very life-changing, potentially life-altering experiences, there is some comfort and semblance in that for folks. I know there is for me. So I will have a courtroom where you are welcome, where you are heard, where you are listened to, and you are understood. So that's what I'm bringing to the service. And we can talk more about the fire and what brings me to this later, Tyrone, but I don't want to just be talking nonstop on your show.
It's all good. Host. You see, I'm proud right now because this is called proactive instead of reactive. I've always mentioned on this show, a lot of our public officials, elected officials, they need to get proactive instead of reactive. And you said you've been in the game for about 5 years making changes. So you've been making changes above what the changes are in the current county. You've been doing what you need to do at the city level. And you actually have put programs in play. So you actually have experience. So the experience that you bring is major. And a reform warrior?
Thank you, Tyrone. I'm really trying. I feel that there's a lot of responsibility in public service. And part of it is to do better when we know better, and to be the voice of change, even when change isn't welcomed or wanted or expected. My granny used to say, change is, baby, right? And I love that because most people don't like change. And in the criminal justice system, if we don't change, then things will not change for our people. And we're way past that time. We were absolutely past that time. And so if we don't make some drastic changes now, we're not going to find the elevation that we deserve.
Excellent. In community engagement, when you are elected as judge, how would that play on your agenda to make Washtenaw County as a whole a better place, if that makes any sense to you?
It does. It resonates with me in two different aspects. One thing Judge Kunke did last year, a year and a half ago, is that she went on a listening tour. And so she was like I think 4 different stops around the county. And I thought that was a beautiful practice, something that I would like to do. You know, you can't talk about pending cases, the rules prohibit that, but hearing from people, hearing what their concerns are, hearing what sometimes it's a complaint, sometimes it's praise, like, hey, we really liked what happened here. I think that's just as important to reinforce what our community really is looking for in the court system, and keeping that open line of communication. The second part of that, I think, is that our courts are the least transparent part of government service that there is. The Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, does not apply to the courts, so you just can't go get information. And I don't know, Tyrone, I know we are age equivalents here. There used to be a game that I played in the middle school. It was called Oregon Trail. And we had one computer in the library. And if you were lucky enough to like get use of it, and it was like a very old archaic computer system. It had a black screen, it had green writing, and like everything you had to hit like Shift F4 to go forward. And it was a great game, old Mac computer, right? Mm-hmm. That is almost identical to the court system computers in our community. It looks just like that. You can't pull aggregate data. The data that you want to pull isn't readily available. You want to be able to find out how a judge sentences. You want to be able to find out if they sentence harder for certain types of crime, with certain races, with certain genders, with certain income levels. You want to be able to see all that. You can't hold a judge accountable if you don't know what they're doing. And I welcome the accountability. So our Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is Bridget McCormack. She lives in Washtenaw County. And she put forth this funding measure that says, state of Michigan, I'm going to need a lot of money, because I would like every single court in Michigan to have, 1, the same court system, 2, let it collect all this really important data, and 3, have it public facing, aggregating the data, meaning like taking out the names and stuff like that and putting it forward so that people can see what the heck our judges are actually doing. And I think that is a first good step towards building community trust, is letting them double check what we're doing. Yes. So I really appreciate that. I think that that is a first good step towards community engagement that we are making, and we've made a long time.
And here's an additional, I want to say this is a subliminal plug to our Washtenaw County trial court judges and our district court judge candidates. Wouldn't it be nice if every judge in Washtenaw County had a connection with, or even a team of community members who want to help inside the system, to help with the judge? the district court judges, and help us leap over many hurdles that we'll be going through trying to navigate things through the system, because a lot of things can be dealt with without charges. A lot of things can be dealt with and pulled in social workers. It could also pull in community members who know things and who can get things done. That would be a beautiful thing in our court system, to have judges that could reach out to community members and have them there at their disposal and do great work in the communities.
I hope, Tyrone, that there is a legacy that I leave at the city attorney's office, if I am blessed to go to the bench, that diversion program, that reaching out to the social workers, reaching out to community members, using the dispute resolution center, mediating our differences, is something that is long lasting. Because I feel when I talk to the folks who, instead of prosecuting them, I've sent them to the dispute resolution center or worked on a mediation with them myself, they all seem like they're more accepting of the outcome because they helped play a part in it. There's buy-in in it. They feel like there's a little restoration, a little healing in it, because they got to air out their differences in a safe spot. And I think in a lot of cases, it's a lot more appropriate. The nice thing is that the people who have been through that part of the program, we haven't seen them back in the justice system. So, I mean, there are certainly things that I believe need to be prosecuted, and that for public safety, you need to go there, right? But there are some things that probably don't need to be there. And I really hope that I'm leaving behind a blueprint for other municipalities to take up this work. And here's the best part. I know everyone's like, well, how are we paying for it? This is what our tax money is being paid for. This is Ann Arbor. We have something that more than anybody else has. Hold on. Marijuana excise tax rebates. Our jurisdiction sells pot, and we get a rebate from the state of Michigan, and the state of Michigan uses, gives us a chunk of money every year, and that's what we're using to fund these programs. So this is not coming from your tax base. This is coming from the sale of marijuana in the city.
Do y'all hear that? See, on the show, on my previous guests, I spoke about the marijuana dispensaries within the city of Ypsilanti. And it's not their duty, but they should want to put back in their community, and the city should recognize them and accept their services, their fees. But making sure the funds go to the right place is important. That's why I mentioned that the medical marijuana dispensaries could actually pay for kids' summer camps, those low-income kids that can't afford to do it. That was an out-of-the-box thinking thought. A lot of our public folk that our courts see, a lot of them come through there not because they want to. A lot of them come through there because of they wounded.
Yeah.
They're in an area or in a position or in a situation that makes their small situation look huge to them, and they get overwhelmed. Most people run to the bottle. Most people run to drugs. Most people run to crime. Some people suffer from depression. That court system, that judge seat that you are running for, is so very important, because we need someone on that bench that understands those elements. And from someone of color, such as myself, I always point myself out, because majority of the time you will see us in the court system and we are always looked down upon or down on in the communities. We're not given greater opportunities like other folk. We need that type of judge on the bench. We need someone who has the experience and know from which they had came from, and know the pains that the families feel. You're going to have to read those stories. And some of those stories ain't just clean cut dry. I mean, you got to make that ultimate decision, that final decision before that person goes to either prison or have probation. And a lot of people want to know, are judges so stuck on reform? Are they not going to focus on the hard crimes, the crimes against their babies, the predators, the murders? There's been violence, I want to say within the last 30 days, I want to say about 7 or 8 bodies within Washtenaw County. We need judges also that's going to pay attention to some of those fools out there that's acting a fool, that want to put fear in people's heart. And we want a better place to live.
Not just fear, but pain, like generational pain. And Tyrone, I'll tell you, in my days as a prosecutor, I stood with people on their absolute worst days of their lives. Very few people ever come to court for happy reasons, right? You can get married at a courthouse. That's exciting. You can adopt a child. That's kind of exciting. Sometimes a name change. There you see a little celebration for that. But other reasons, nobody ever comes to court like in a joyous kind of way. And in my years as a prosecutor, I prosecuted everything from drunk driving to homicide. And there is nothing more just devastating than standing next to somebody who has lost a child or lost a loved one to violence, unnecessary violence. I think I will tell you a story about one of my first homicides that I ever worked. And it was a woman who, she had kids in her 20s, and they were there to give the victim impact statement. And I thought I was going to feel a certain kind of way, right? Because I have this conviction. It was proven that this guy did what was alleged. He actually confessed to it, testified to it. Yeah, I did it. And as a young prosecutor, you're taught not to have these emotions in the courtroom. That was the old administration and how we did that. So we're standing listening to the victim impact statement, and the sobbing in the courtroom is just unimaginable. And I couldn't dare look back and look behind me, because I just didn't want to see it, because I knew that it would break my heart too. And I can't be up there crying. Like, I have a job to do. And at some point I just continues, and I do look back, and I see one of the victim's uncles hugging the defendant's mama. Mm. And it was the quintessential picture for community harm. This mama is losing her son to the Michigan Department of Corrections. He will spend the rest of his natural life in the Department of Corrections. These kids, these aunts, uncles, mamas, that woman's not coming back regardless of what happens at that day. And you have to really weigh the balance of, what do you need to do to make sure that our community is safe so that this person doesn't perpetrate a crime again? But I will tell you this, there are very few people that are going to spend their natural life in the Department of Corrections. Most everyone is coming back. And do we want to come back with people who have conditions that are tried to help them and help them reintegrate back into society? Or are we just going to lock them up and hope everything's okay when they get out? It's time out for that, because that's the way we've been operating. Like, there are some really great local programs that are really focusing on reentry. But I think the most important part is that when you are making a sentence, it is individually tailored. Now, for those of you who haven't watched a circuit court sentencing docket, and they happen 4 days a week, they sound very similar on most fronts. $1,100 crime fines and costs, $75 crime victims' rights fee, don't go to 123 Main Street, don't have contact with Jim Shoe or barbed wire, and don't use alcohol or illegal drugs. And that kind of sounds the same. Mm-hmm. And I get that. There's certain things that the court has to order by statute. But I can't imagine that regardless of whatever brought you before the court, is that everyone's conditions should sound the same, because we're all individuals. We all suffer from different ailments and vices. And so I think making sure that you can weigh public safety with the needs of the person who is, under sentence. It's a formula. It's not easy. It's not a perfect science, and it takes experience. And I have been serving in this capacity. This is a criminal seat, Tyrone. This is a criminal seat that's also going to have restraining orders and a little bit of domestic work. Now is not the time to learn criminal law. You can't make improvements. You got to be able to go right in and slide into this and understand the law. You don't need to learn to be a judge while learning the law at the same time. And that's, I think, very important, because I also know where we can do better. Right.
And so let me put a lid on that one then. I guess,
yeah,
in a ball in a nutshell, you have to be a battle-tested prosecutor to know what that seat entails. And if you ain't battle-tested, in which, Arianne, you've been battle-tested for many years. You've been battle-tested for many years. And at the same time, you came out on top. You came out on top because you did it the right way. And I'm mentioning this to you because I know for a fact, I seen you work. I seen you work during your campaign. You held your head high and you stood on dignity, respect, and the truth. Experience matters. When you're out there dealing with folks' lives, this ain't no Democrat or Republican or independent that don't be talked about anymore. This is about a human. Absolutely. And when you're doing something like this, you have to have that heart. You have to have that experience. And no, you can't learn on the fly. This is a precious moment when you're sitting at the seat of the circuit court judge and you're sending people away. You can't learn that on the fly. So
no,
without,
I wouldn't recommend it.
No.
It doesn't need to be that hard. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it doesn't need to be that hard.
Well, it shouldn't be done that way because we know what we need on our seats. Everybody, we know what's going on in our streets in Washtenaw County. One side is growing and the other side is falling.
Yeah.
But it should take all leadership coming together, and we should have judges on the seat that understands the people that they serve and experienced.
Well, thank you. I don't have a personality of like a sideline person, I guess, to kind of watch, and there are times to listen, certainly. There's times to get on and get after it. But most of the time, you should be searching for a seasoned way to look for change. And I say that, and I was going to tell you more. I mentioned that fire where I get this from, and I get it from my dad. And for those of you who haven't met Ron Rowe, he is quite a character. He's a fantastic guy on many levels, but he told me that if you want to make change and you want to be there for your community, that you have to go into the hornet's nest, even if you're not welcome, even if you're not wanted. And if you stay there long enough, you can make inroads and safe passage for others. And I believe that in terms of mentoring new up and coming attorneys, I believe that from going into police training, which is something that I do, right? Going into a place where they're not trying to hear from me at all, and I'm making sure that they do right and to hold them accountable, I'm going to do it. My dad, and this is interesting, my dad was a police officer. I don't know if you know that, Tyrone.
Mm.
Early on in his years, he was a police officer, but we were also kids, my sister Abigail and I, who knew the 10 Commandments when we were young of the Black Panther Party, right? So he wasn't your everyday police officer. He was the first Black officer at his department. He was the first Black command officer in the state of Indiana. But he talked very poorly about his profession overall. And I used to ask him, like, if you dislike it so much, like, why do you do it? You should get a different job. And my Uncle Bobby at the time, he used to drive for Greyhound. And so I was like, you should go work with Uncle Bobby. Like, he loves his job. He gets to travel. He does all this stuff. And he was like, no, baby, I have to be here. And I never understood that until I was about 19. And he's from the lowlands of Kentucky. And my dad shared that as a young person, he lost his dad to a lynching. And he and his brother Bobby, in an effort to make sure that they were safe, left the lowlands. Mm-hmm. They didn't return for decades. My dad signed up for the Army, and that was his way of having a place to go. And after that, Tyrone, when he came out of the Army in the late 60s, early 70s, he decided to be a police officer. And I was like, why would you do that? And he said, baby, it wasn't the Klan per se that murdered Bob Moe, your granddaddy. It was the police. To this day, his death certificate reads he has a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but he had over 48 holes in him.
Wow.
And he said, I was always going to be there because we didn't have anyone to go to. The police are supposed to be the ones you go to for help. When something the horrible, horrible happens, they're the ones who are supposed to be there to protect you. And they weren't. And I could be that for somebody who needed an inroad in and who actually needed the help. I was going to be there. And he was an amazing resource in that community for 20 years. And he retired in the mid 80s, and I think December of 85. He started another career and moved us up here to Ann Arbor. But I feel like I have his spirit. You know, why would anyone want to be a prosecutor, much less a Black woman? Knowing all the atrocities that prosecutors have in our community. Well, you can be a little bit of a gatekeeper too.
Yes, you can.
You can, even the cases that are in your wheelhouse, no matter how many few they are, this couple hundred, you know that this few hundred that are coming into your office, you are going to do right by people. You're not only going to be the best prosecutor for them, you're going to be the best defense attorney, and you're going to be the public servant who's actually looking out for our community. And it was hard for me to leave 5 years ago to the prosecutor's office because I was really afraid of, like, if I'm not watching these cases, who's going to do it?
Right.
But I did, and I'm very grateful that I've had this opportunity at the city, because what I have been able to show is that these justice reforms that a lot of people have been talking about the last couple of years, they actually work. And if we are meeting people at the most basic level with the needs that they have, they're less likely to end up in these situations where there's more serious and more violent crime.
This is true.
I'm not saying it's a cure-all. I'm not saying it's going to stop violent crime. I do not believe that at all. But less to any degree is better. Right. Less harm, less distrust, less pain, that only elevates the community. And so I still stand by those programs. I still believe that they are going to be good, and over time they will reduce crime in general in our community. And that's when we start to see that, Tyrone, that's when we'll start to see some generational healing. If we can combine that with trust of the legal system, which I know seems unimaginable for so many people right now, but I'm not giving up hope. I'm not giving up hope that one day, and it might not be in my lifetime, or right, it might maybe in my kids, but one time that there will be just, and we'll actually have just in our justice system. It'll be just for everyone.
That's right. We need it.
So it's got to start someplace.
We need it. The collective brains need to come together and do some out of the box thinking and out of the box acting. And
Yeah, collective hearts too, though.
yeah, collective hearts, exactly. And
Yeah.
the thing right now that you need most to help your campaign is votes. So
Yeah.
we want the people to know how to contact you. We put her website on our Zoom information, and right at the top of the Zoom box, you see her website, slayforjudge.org, slayforjudge.org. And talk to the people and let them know what you need most right now for them to do besides vote and help your campaign. Maybe even host a campaign party or a yard party for you to get some voters together. And
Thank you. I would love that. So what is going to, I think, be successful in this election and to help like bring it home is word of mouth. So there's a couple of different things you can do. If you are not following Arianne Slay for Judge on Facebook, please do so. You'll find out about all the events that we have and opportunities to volunteer. We are walking in parades. We are knocking doors. We are going to expungement fairs. We're everywhere. So if it's something that you're interested in and you want to be out in the community, we'd love to hear from you. There's also an opportunity for you to host your own Zoom. So we will do all the heavy lifting. We have the Zoom account. All we need are email addresses, and then we'll make a flyer for you. You can send it to your friends and family and neighbors, and we can host a 40-minute Zoom or longer, however long you want to do, but usually they're about 45 minutes, where I get to explain what I'm planning on doing as a judge, ask for help, and people have the opportunity to ask questions. The other thing that you can do, we also do phone banking. So we call people and let them know that, we'd like you to consider Arianne for judge. Tons of ways to volunteer. If you are so inclined and you want to have a meet and greet in your front yard, and you just invite over the people who you normally have a meet and greet with on Fridays, and I can stop by for a couple of minutes and meet your neighbors. Also, the last thing I would say is if you're interested in hosting a yard sign, and if you go to slayforjudge.com or you go to the Facebook account, you can send us a message and we will deliver a yard sign to your house. And you can host it there. And that's super important. It is a long season for us. It's 130 days till the general election. So you can just make sure it's out when those absentee ballots go out in October.
Look here.
So those are all ways that you can, if you're interested, if you'd like to hear more, obviously, Facebook is the quickest way to get in touch with me. We have some campaign volunteers that are on it all the time.
Look here, y'all. Let me go ahead and explain something to you real quick. Experience matters. Y'all hear what Arianne brings to the bench. Early voting. Y'all feel you need to vote early. Y'all know how to vote. Vote the right way. Vote the experience. That's the change that we're going to get on the bench. The total experience is an Arianne Slay. Hands down. Y'all know that. She's been there. She's battle tested. Look at the website. Get you some yard signs, because I'm going to go get some if I have to come tiptoe burgle around our house and grab some. So I have to have some, because I am not, I can't support no inexperienced candidate, no inexperienced judge. And also, if you've been battle tested and you didn't came through this show and we didn't tested the temperature and everything, and we already know about you, we gonna support you too. But we need everybody that's watching this show. Go back and watch the other candidate and watch this show. That's why I stayed silent. I wanted to hear her talk. She got the experience. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science, y'all. We need experience. We need somebody who has the heart for the job. And somebody's very educated on day one. You can't have a judge on the bench reading the manual. Don't work like that. Don't work like that. You got to be prepared, literally qualified on all angles, and know what you're doing. I talk a lot, but I intended to, because I want y'all to vote Arianne Slay for circuit court judge. I do. I asked y'all the last time. We got two beautiful judges on the bench before. Arianne Washington and also Tracy Vandenberg. Two beautiful judges. We got to get our judges on the bench that's going to serve us well. And Arianne, I'll let you have the last say, because I know I'm long-winded and I know you're busy. You have a family to attend to, and you have some more campaigning to do.
Oh, thank you. Tyrone, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. I hope we can continue our conversations. I hope that we can see each other in the near future, and that you're going to be there at that investiture. I thank you for your support. Everyone out there in Facebook land, now is not the time to be shy about questions. And regardless of which way you vote, voting is something that for so many of us, our ancestors died for, our parents died for, our grandparents. It is very serious, and it is something that should not be taken lightly. And you should be a prepared and educated voter. So take the time to study your ballot up and down. I'm going to be at the very bottom in the nonpartisan section. So don't get tired and give up on your ballot. Got to go all the way down to the bottom to find that nonpartisan section. So I am asking for your vote. I'm asking for your support. And I'm asking for your prayer. Tyrone said that I'm battle tested. It is true, but that does not make this process any easier. It is not easy for any candidate, and especially not easy for candidates of color right here in Washtenaw County. So please be a fence for me if you can, and I will take your prayers of protection. But I appreciate you so much, Tyrone. Thanks again for having me on.
Let me tell you, our show have been praying for you since the very first time you came on our show.
Thank you.
I know what type of God we serve. And for those preachers that back the prayer, and all those believers and all those viewers and listeners that back the prayer, thank you. But we knew she was coming back. We knew she needed a position to do greater good. This is the position. This is that baton that God is passing to her, y'all. Look here, she's battle tested. She's ready. Let's get her in office.
Thanks, Tyrone. Appreciate bench. You.
All right, Arianne. Thank you. And
all right.
Tell the family hi. And
I
happy
will.
Campaigning. Vote Arianne Slay, y'all.
Good night.
Right. Peace.